Hello viewers, welcome back to the lab. This is part 2 of the video where I was looking at the Quantel Snetcom and I was talking about trying to get it into this old ATX PC case from, what would this be from? Probably early noughties. We're going to try and fit it in there. I think there's going to be a few issues along the way. I suspect this video is probably going to be made up of me making a bit of progress, sorting something out, and then magically coming along with the solution. So I'm probably going to end up filming this in multiple stages, then just edit it all into just one big video. Right, first off, I just want to thank my loyal patrons for all of their support. I wouldn't be here making these videos without them. Thank you very, very much. If you want to be a patron, I would certainly welcome that. There are links to the Patreon website in the video description. And of course, this episode is sponsored by PCBWay. This episode of Dexter's Tech Lab has been sponsored by PCBWay, your one-stop solution for PCB prototyping, PCB assembly, and this is not just normal PCBs. You can do flex rigid, all this sort of stuff. They also offer 3D printing, CNC machining and milling, sheet metal fabrication and injection molding. So tons and tons of options there for turning your current project into reality. So we thank them for their support. Okay, let's talk about the practicalities of what we're actually doing here. So let's just remove the lid off the PC. So I know this board will fit in there. There's plenty of room. That's no problem. Obviously, the mounting points for the PC stuff doesn't match at all the stuff on the Quantel, because they're two completely different machines. So the mounting points on the base of the case will all be in the wrong spot. So I suspect what I will end up doing at some point, I will magically appear with an adapter plate which will fit in there to be like an interposer. So the plate will mount to the case and then this will mount to the adapter plate. We'll see how we get on with that because obviously I need to strip this down first. There's a few other little bits. There's a serial port on the Netcom board which I would like to have accessible, so I have a little small riser there for fitting it into the back plate, and I can just wire this in to the board. There's possibly some other better solutions going down the line. Given I've actually got network coming into this box, there's no reason why I couldn't have a very small little network switch inside here and actually have an RS-232 to TCP/IP converter to give me a telnet interface, and I can just telnet into it and not have a serial port. So that's probably something for the future though. We'll stick with serial for the time being because it just works. Other considerations, this obviously is ATX, the power supply is ATX. The Quantel is nothing to do with ITX. So the whole power on situation is a little bit more complex because the power switch is a simple on-off clicker, and that connects to normally the PC motherboard, and that when you click the switch on the front, it pulls the power pin on the ATX connector. I think it grounds it. I can't remember. It's one way or the other, and that turns on the power supply out of standby mode and turns it on fully. Now, obviously, I have no control over that from here. So what I've done, I've bought one of these little ATX power switch emulator things. So the momentary switch on the front here will connect into this, and then this will then connect into the ATX power connector on the power supply, and will do that power on-off function for me. So there is that as well. I've been off and bought some more SCSI cables because yeah, I'm going to need some. And this particular one might actually be quite useful because it has a load of the 50-pin SCSI connectors on, and it has the micro D connector on as well, normally seen on SCSI 2 devices. But I wonder whether I might actually be able to mount that on the back plate as well and actually have more access to the SCSI outside the box. So that's another possibility. In terms of everything else, obviously the MO drive and the Zulu SCSI, which is mounted in a 3.5-inch adapter, that will just mount into the normal PC hardware slot, so that's not a problem. Now, as you can see, it's a bit dusty and stuff in here. This was on 24 hours a day for several years, so this is going to need a really good clean. So I'm going to strip it down fully, and I'll probably go and give it a bath. So let's start by removing everything out. That's the old board that I used. This is actually an Intel motherboard. What model number is it? D945GCLF2. And I think, was it a dual core Atom? I can't remember. So we can give that a clean. Now, I think I've just spotted our first problem. That is this. So when this goes in here, which of course, I'll put it in the right way, that will go in there, but it requires bottom mounting, so there's no holes in the base of this, so I will probably just drill some new holes in there and just try and bolt it into place. I think it's probably the easiest solution, possibly. We'll see. Okay, we'll worry about that when we come to it. So these have been off to have a bath and they've come up quite nice, to be honest. So didn't need much cleaning at all. It was just light dust, really. So I've had a thought with this. This is the front panel connectors that we're not going to be using. So what I'm going to do is reinstall this, but what I'm going to do is just remove the cables because we're not going to need them. So there'll just be less clutter, and that can just go back in there, just on there, and it can just cover up the blank holes. The power switch and LEDs will be going back in. Obviously the power LED I'm going to have to try and rig in somewhere, and the what would be the hard disk activity light, it would be nice to have that working. I would suspect I should be able to connect up to the activity LED point on the Zulu SCSI, so that should be pretty good for that. So I probably just need to install a header on there that I can connect the normal wires into. So we've just got to work out which way to install this board. I mean, once it's done and set up, I'm not really going to need access to changing these switches or anything, because it'll just be set up and working. But you know, so it could go in that way. All that way. That way. I think on balance, I think that way might actually be better. This connector I'm not going to be using. So this connector along the back, or well, whichever side you want it to be on, that is the one that connected into the actual Quantel Paintbox backplane. So obviously we're not going to be needing to use that. I mean, I could. Where's the power supply? Oh, I need to clean that yet. So power supply fits in there. So if I actually, could I mount it? I wonder whether there might be a slightly better option. Bringing it over this way means I might still have access to some of these rotary switches, which it's not essential, but yeah, it's nice to have. The SCSI port I'm using is going to be this one, so that's fine, and it's going to be near the drives. These aren't being used, so they're not going to get in the way of the fan on the power supply. Yeah, I think that might be an option. Now, as I said before, I can't mount this down right now because although this base here is not... Oops. Although this base here is not this base here, they've riveted it on. So unless I drilled through both layers and had screws showing on this side, I can't do anything without some kind of adapter bracket that will mount into these regular ATX holes, and then I can mount this onto that board. So I think I'm going to plan for it to go in like that. So I'll probably need to do some drawings and get somebody to make a little adapter plate for me. And of course I'm going to need to find a solution to mounting that in there. I think what I'll do first is just have a quick look on the interwebs and see what other options there are for these brackets. See if one might actually fit. If not, I'm going to have to start being a bit creative. Right, we need to clean the power supply. So let's do that. So, although I can't mount the Zulu SCSI yet, I can mount the MO drive. And which one does it need to be in? That's a question. see if I actually got the right holes. Yeah. Right, so I think that's looking pretty good. So that will end up mounting in down in there. I'm not sure how to do the network just yet. I'll probably have to get creative on that, because this has the network port actually attached to the board. So obviously, yeah, I could have it so I could have it that way around, but I think it's, what I'll probably do is try and find some kind of extension or riser or something to take it from here to put it over on the back somewhere. Right, so I think it's time for me to disappear and some time to pass.
One eternity later.
Hey everyone, so it's been actually quite a few days. It's been about a week or so since I last filmed on this project, so my apologies if there's a bit of discontinuity. So I've made a bit of progress. Things took a little bit longer than expected because I had to order things, wait for them to come and all that. So, but in the meantime, what I did in the last section, you saw me cleaning the power supply. That's obviously all been done. I've also now spliced in wires into the ATX power connector. I didn't want to start chopping things off because I can, like this, I can just still leave the standard ATX power connector on there for future use if I ever need it. So what I did, I just spliced into the wires. These are 3 wires which are used by the button switch adapter. Those are the permanent 5 volt, the 5 volt standby, ground and the power on signal. So that little board just interfaces the momentary switch into a latching switch to operate the power supply. So that's what that is. So we just got the standard case switch coming into that, and then that powering up the power supply. I also took another splice for the standby 5 volt signal because I'm using that to solve the network cabling issue. As I mentioned before, the Netcom is going to be sitting like this in the actual box. The network port is here, but it needs to be on the back really. And I don't really want to have a cable dangling out the back or anything like that. So what I'm doing, I'm actually going to install this really tiny little network switch. This is just a really cheap 10100 switch, and that runs on 5 volts. So this is going to get powered up permanently off the standby 5 volts, and that will just plug in at the back. It'll just mount up here. We've got a barrel plug wired in, so that can go into there, and then I have a short right angled network cable just here, and that will plug into here and then plug into the Netcom. So that will solve that issue. The other advantage to having a little switch on the back of this machine is it means I can just connect this directly to another Quantel paint box or a edit box, whatever. I don't need any other kind of networking equipment. I can just literally plug the paint box into here and it'll appear on the network. It'll just be a network of 2. So that's a bit of an advantage if I was visiting somebody and I just needed to copy some files to or from their machine over the network. I can just literally plug it into the back of this box and we're all sorted. So other things that have happened, the drive mounting issue that I had before has been solved because I realised there's actually a bay underneath the chassis for a 3.5-inch hard disk, so that just mounts straight onto there, no problem at all. The only disadvantage is it's a little bit awkward if I want to eject and get access to the SD card. When it was on the front, I could have accessed it from the front of the box, but chances are I'm probably not going to be needing to do much with that anyway, so I am not too fussed. Also, I've installed a 2-pin header onto the Zulu SCSI board, so that just plugs into the regular hard disk light on the case. The other thing that I've managed to do is make a small adapter plate, so this mounts into the standard case and converts effectively ATX and ITX into the Netcom. So the Netcom will mount onto this, and then this will mount into the case. So you're about to join me where I drill out the holes for the Netcom mounting, and I will tap a UNC thread onto those, put the standoffs in, mount the I'll need to mount this board first and then put the Netcom on it. The standard PC standoffs mounted, and the Netcom will then go in just there. Right, I'm having a real issue trying to get this SCSI cable in some kind of neat position. It's really not wanting to go, so I think I'm going to... So I've just changed the cable a little bit. I've basically just moved it onto a different connector, and that does seem to want to sit a lot better. So I think what I might do is literally just chop this tail off the cable and kind of make it custom for this job. No longer fitted. So next job is to put the network switch on the back. Now thankfully this case just pops apart and I can just cable tie it onto the back of the case. Right, I think we are there. Everything seems to be in place. I guess I should power this on, give it a test, make sure all still works. So I'll plug my serial cable in. a network cable that can go into any one of the other switch ports. Excellent. Yeah, the power light on the network switch has come up, and it's got a link to my my hub, and so I'll just power this on. Okay, we'd best off give it a quick test. So I'm just going to turn on paint box. That goes on, and we'll turn on this as well. Right, you can see there it's definitely found the paint box, but the paint box is still booting up, so let's just turn off the Netcom diagnostics. We should. Yay! There we go. Right, so full page menu. Disk is there. Excellent. Library, find. And there are all the pictures. Excellent. So I now have my enormous 96 gigabytes of storage for all of my Quantel Paintbox files, which is awesome. The other nice thing as well, of course, because it's an SD card, it's dead easy to back up, because I could just make copies of the image file that's written onto it. So yeah. So that all seems to be working just fine, which is awesome. This is going to become quite a useful bit of kit in the lab when I'm working on Quantel stuff, for backing up files and archiving images and saving my own work as well, things like that. So having 96 gigabytes of storage for all my Quantel files is absolutely enormous, and I'll probably never fill it. Well, we'll see. Okay, that concludes this video. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks to my channel sponsor PCBWay, and of course thanks to all of my patrons. If you want to become a patron, there will be links in the video description. Okay, thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.